Good evening, everyone. I want to first start off by saying thank you for coming out to celebrate this 2014 class and our accomplishment tonight. I feel like I'm the only one that didn't remember his speech, but I'm going to get this together, y'all. How do you know something is worth having without ever having it? How can you really enjoy something if you never worked for it? How can you appreciate anything if you never had anything taken away from you? Going back 7 years, I can honestly say that these questions summed up 85% of the person that I was. Walking around with my head held so high, I thought the entire world owed me something. Didn't care about the bridges I burnt or the feelings I hurt. All I knew was that I had just hit the age of 18, and at that point, I was grown. I joined Yearup back in 2008 with one thing on my mind, just to get it over with. My aunt had been pressing me about my future plans and introduced the program to me. And whatever I needed to do to shut her up at the time was what I did, so I enrolled. I had never really failed at anything before then, whether it was because of my skills or the fact that someone had taken pity over my anger and slipped me through the cracks. My confidence normally gave me the push I needed in the work environment, but when I attended Yearup, they saw through the old Michelle act, just showing up and doing the minimum. So they pushed and guided me as much as I would allow them to and more. I grasped that you had to be willing to change in the program in order to succeed, and changing was an option to a certain extent. That same stubborn and immature thought caused me to find myself the day before internship 6 months into the program. Talk about being heartbroken. After that, I felt like my entire world was over. I hated Yearup. Never wanted to see it, speak of it, or hear anyone else speak of it. For 4 whole years, I blamed Yearup for my failure. I kept telling myself, it was the last day. They could have let me slide. Expecting them to do what people have been doing to me my entire life, letting me slide. After that, I went from job to job. Not because of pay, but because of lack of interest. Then I asked myself, when was the last time you felt like you was on track, Michelle? And as much as I hated the thought that came to mind, I had to suck it up and speak the truth. Yearup. So I reapplied. But this time, it wasn't a one-on-one, but a 5-on-1 admissions interview. I'm thinking, dang, all this for little old Michelle? But I got in, and failing twice was not an option. My first week back at Yale was shaky. I had a lot going on in my personal life, as always. It was kind of hard to get understanding from teachers in the beginning. To them, it seemed like I had just put on the act for the interviews and the old Michelle was back. I told myself I had a couple of people to prove wrong, so I sucked up life outside of the glass doors and focused on my goals. However, I had gotten used to being on my own, making my own decisions and doing things my way. It was very hard for me to go to school every day and take direction from people close to my age. I looked at them as if we stood toe-to-toe and had a very hard time withholding that emotion. They say everyone meets their maker, and even the biggest, baddest wolf has that one person that shakes their boots. And in this case, that person to me was none other than the best LC leader I have ever had, Kate Gerwig. I felt like Rhonda had sent her to handle Michelle boot camp before I came. Because every time I pulled, she pushed and let me know that she wasn't there to take over, but to guide me into the successful, professional, independent woman she knew I could be. After I got over myself, I only gave certain people a hard time after that. Like Kanali. Oh, how I love Kanali class. Walking in the room to make sure I said hello. Hey, Nali. She never let her worst days get the best of her and stood strong to let me know that it would be her way, which was being professional at all times, or me back in the hallway begging to get back in before Kate seen me. Most of the times, my peers kept me on point. Bonnice, Narvin, Jocelyn, and P.S. reminding me every day that I had a mission to complete and they were not going to let me fail. Then I had other peers that needed that same push for me, like Jerica. I always made sure that we stayed on track with assignments. When I made it to the end of the learning and development phase, I was mostly anxious to start the internship phase since I fired myself before I got there the first time. Every day at Washington Gas, I did what I had to do as one of the IT support members and whatever more I could to make my hard work stand out. As I came to the end of my days, I didn't want to leave, but I knew I had to go find my place in the work field. They made it very clear of how good of a job I'd done, and I had become so much of an asset to their company that the team manager, Chris, told me he really didn't know how things would be once I left. There were plenty of times when I just wanted to give up on everything. But what was that going to do for me at the age of 24 going on 25? Knowing that this was my last chance, I kept pushing and did what I had to do to become successful. There were no more excuses. Yes, I didn't have the guidance that I should have had growing up. And yes, I've experienced a lot at a young age that I shouldn't have. But those experiences and knowing that I wanted better for myself were what kept me coming back to the glass doors of Yearup. I stand here today to share this testimony with you, to let you see for yourself that anything is possible. No, I am not perfect. And yes, I have a lot to learn. But Yearup has given me an experience that has made me and will continue to make me a phenomenal woman, able to accept failure, getting back up and going back at it. As I end this with you today, know that my story will not end here. I will continue to prosper. I might even do a little bit more stumbling, but know that I will always get back up.
That's right.
Because yes, life tried to bury me in the ground, but what it did not know was that I am a seed.
That's right.
Thank you.
Here to present the Dave Reddick Award.